It's shocking, really, to learn that Steve Dymond, who died 7 days after being on the Jeremy Kyle show, had apparently rung 40 to 50 times in a desperate attempt to become a guest. And uh, apparently he killed himself after the show in 2019. He'd taken a lie detector test for the program after being accused of cheating on his partner, Jane Callahan, and he failed that lie detector test and he couldn't believe it. And he took a morphine overdose, and he'd already been diagnosed with depression. He'd taken 4 overdoses in the past, and so he should have been flagged up as someone at risk of suicide anyway. And I'm doing a talk. I'm on a panel in Leeds in about a month's time, talking about reality TV. And what worries me about reality TV, and particularly about the truncated uh, parliamentary committee into reality TV, which has led to the current Ofcom rules, which grant a lot of power to production companies. And I know this is disputed by people who work on these programs, the psychiatric teams that support the big, Love Island, Big Brother, um, the traitors programs. These people are always going to turn around and say, "Oh no, no, this is about um, incidental moments, and the system is so much more robust now, and we pick up the problems." But the point is, we shouldn't have television where there is a serious possibility that the experience of being involved in entertainment can lead to a tragedy like suicide. And in the end, that is entertainment. Now, these people will try and say, "Oh, your motive for being on these shows is that you should enjoy it." So, in other words, you're not really working; you're just enjoying it. You're having fun, and this is like a little holiday. But actually, you work very hard. I know. I've been on one of these shows. You work very hard indeed. And uh, I mentioned today that when I was on the circle, I hadn't at that point watched any reality TV that I was aware of. I hadn't even watched Strictly Come Dancing. And the immediate response was, "Well, that you certainly wouldn't pass the psychiatric evaluation now. You shouldn't have been on such a show. That should have been a red flag." Well, yes, it should have been. It should have been. I actually enjoyed my time on reality TV, but I certainly wasn't ready for the aftermath. And the aftermath, I find, I think, is about a loss of agency. And you may think you're in control of your life at the moment. You may be. You may not be. But reality TV puts people in a situation where gradually your agency is taken away, in much the same way as agency is taken away from people in prison or from people who are being primed for torture, or indeed being trained to withstand torture in a system called the R21 technique, which was devised by the British Army and the Israeli Army and used for a long time. I think it's still used to train soldiers to withstand interrogation. And this involves putting people in stress positions, in stress situations, where they're given commands and where their sleep, their time is disoriented. And teachers do it automatically when we're in a lesson. One way of gaining control over children is to tell them to do something which they're automatically going to do anyway, and suddenly they do it, and they have this sense that they've been instructed to do it. Come in, stand by your desks, take off your jackets. They're going to do that. Sit down. They're going to do that anyway, whether you tell them to or not. But the fact that you get in there first and you tell them to do it gives an aura, a patina of authority to the teacher. Now imagine that being boomed out of loudspeakers in your room. Now is the time. Don't you think you should be having something to eat? Don't you think you should be going to bed now? And you have to get permission to go to the loo. And all of these little commands, on the understanding that everything is being filmed, are a way to make you more compliant. Now, I'm not suggesting that television companies are malicious and predatory. That's for somebody else to draw as a conclusion. But what I am suggesting is that they're using these techniques, including very zangy pictures on the wall, very bright colours, which of course work very well on television. But nevertheless, you've got to live with it. Very overheated spaces, very noisy. And let's say if you're making a film or something, you have many of the same experiences, but you have an agent and you have a union that represents you. And for the most part, you have a support mechanism at home that understands what you're doing. Because of the lies that surround reality TV, nobody understands this. They think that, oh, it's about fame or the loss of fame. They think, well, why would anybody go on these shows unless they want to be famous? And, why would you apply? Well, I can tell you. Most people don't apply. Most people get headhunted. And the decision to go on these shows is taken within the space of, in my case, just a couple of weeks. And a lot of pressure was put on me to accept and to agree. It was pleasure, which was quite pleasant, but it was pressure nevertheless. Lots and lots of calls, so you just don't have time to talk. And you're also encouraged to keep this as a secret, so not discuss it with anyone. So you can't really get advice. And so on the one hand, yes, it's supposed to be a bit of fun. On another hand, people may not be able to deal with fame or the loss of fame. And on the other hand, of course, the big thing that maybe you got a bad edit. Well, I have to say, I got a very good edit. And I don't think the fame is a particular issue. I got back to doing exactly what I do. But I was certainly greatly disturbed by what happened to other people, by my discovery about the dark underbelly of this industry. And it took me a long time to regain control of my own life, partly because of this sort of ghosting experience that the media conspired in promoting the idea. The only two problems were this issue of fame and this issue of a bad edit, and this issue of being a bad loser. I wasn't a loser. I won. And for that reason, I felt it was incumbent on me to speak out. Because most of the people who speak out are people who did not win. So I can't be accused of being a bad loser, and I don't think I can be accused of being stupid or silly about this. What I saw was a lot of people who were miserable, not just the contestants or the participants, but also the runners, the smaller producers who would just go from program to program to program and are paid appallingly and treated like dirt. And they make these sort of deep friendships and then they're told not to speak to you again. And it's a heartless system, as is a lot of management in the arts. And this idea that you've got to kowtow and tug your forelock to the authorities. It's very formulaic. Anyway, I was very interested in this story about the enthusiasm that Steve Dymond seems to have had to get on to Jeremy Carr's program. And you think, oh my, why would he want to do this? Why would he want to do this? But how can you tell? How can you tell? And the bottom line is these programs provide psychiatric support, but it's paid for by the production companies, and that psychiatric support is really only on offer if there's a crisis. Whereas if you were in the army and you were going through the R21 technique, that psychiatric support would be part of the process, part of the reviewing and the debriefing process, whether you realized you were in crisis or not. And I think this is something, and certainly a show which is predicated on deceit, as indeed the Circle was, I think runs a lot of risks. And getting back that sense of identity, certainly I think the level of stress that I experienced after the show was significant. It was worse. I've written it in a newspaper. I think I did an article for The Independent, and I said the 18 months that followed my reality TV show experience was worse than being held at gunpoint, which happened to me on 3 occasions in Greece. And it was about 18 months of misery. And then shortly after that, I was diagnosed with cancer, and the consultant said that he thought my tumour was about 18 months old. It's not a proof of any connection. It's not a legal proof in any way, but I think it's anecdotally interesting. And I won. And so if I, as a winner, could have experienced so much stress and could have felt that there was so little real support, what about those people who lost? What about those people who failed? What about those people who never actually got on the show? The people who were kept in seclusion in little hotels for weeks in the hope that they might be chosen to participate in this television experience. Effectively held in captivity. For what? For nothing. It's a grim, abusive system for making cheap television, for making entertainment. And I think it's sort of meat grinder stuff. It's the stuff of gladiatorial combat. But at the same time, it's a great way to make dramatic television. And if it were a little bit more controlled, and I'm not talking, I don't think psychiatry is an answer to everything. I think one needs better systems in place, better management, better agents, better union representation. These things need to be in place, because you can't just assume that psychiatry is a universal panacea. It isn't. It isn't. So I'm looking forward to this panel. I don't know whether I'll be able to talk, because I'm sure the media line will be pushed out vigorously. But yes, if anybody wants to come along, it's the Leeds International something or other. I can't remember exactly what. And I think Rylan is also on the panel, so that will be very entertaining. And it would be nice to meet him, to see him again. yes, as I say, the reason I'm thinking about this is because of the story which has come out today about Dymond's application, um, and, uh, and the fact that he applied again and again and again, um, and and that he was and that his application to be on the Jeremy Kyle show was supported by GP letters and so on, um, and and that the aftercare team was involved, and yet at the same time he was still a tragic victim of this process.